first, won by Preston North End, was 100 years old. The Football League, in its modest way, hired the rest of the world to open the centenary celebrations. Diego Maradona was paid £100,000 to come to the party and was loudly booed by many of the 61,000 who paid to watch. Not even the hand of God could deny the league a 3-0 victory. Diego and the customers were mutually unimpressed. A less fleeting visitor from South America was Brazil's Mirandinha, whose transatlantic migration involved shedding his tropical plumage for the magpie stripes of Newcastle United. But St James's Park had lost Peter Beardsley. Liverpool paid nearly £3 million to combine the cunning of Beardsley with the running of John Barnes from Watford. Celtic exported the scoring knack of Brian McClair to Manchester United for £850,000. Glenn Hoddle left Spurs to provide Mark Hateley with ammunition at Monaco. There were new managerial faces: Colin Harvey, with Peter Reid as player-coach at Everton, Ray Harford at Luton, Bobby Gould at Wimbledon, in place of Dave Bassett, who'd gone to Watford, in place of Graham Taylor, who'd gone to Aston Villa. The season also started with a new club. Scarborough were welcomed into the league with a less than welcome visit from some of Wolverhampton Wanderers' less desirable hangers-on, one of whom didn't hang on very long. But this season, the league were better prepared. More and more clubs were installing closed-circuit cameras to identify troublemakers. The Hoolivan became a familiar sight in the streets round our stadiums, and the former Assistant Chief Constable of Merseyside was appointed full-time security officer to the league. In Scotland, the favourites met early. Celtic, under the management of Billy McNeill again, had an August date with Graham Souness's Rangers.
We would love to win the game. We should be trying our hardest to win the game, but at the end of the day, it's 2 points.
There's a nice dummy. Billy Stark has scored. Nils Roy Aitken incensed by that. Billy Stark had his boot off, and that will be Souness off. He's already been booked, and Rangers are down to 10 men.
The favourites south of the border began their season in exile. The Kop, silent and empty. A collapsed main drain forced Liverpool to postpone their first 3 home games. But on the road from day one, their new men started as they intended to finish. Aldridge from Beardsley and Barnes. Manchester United opened in unfamiliar blue to take a point at Southampton. Back home, Brian McClair's first goal for his new club helped account for Watford. August ended with Manchester United on top. September saw Merthyr Tydfil break out in red, white and green all the way up the road to Pont Morlais Chapel. Italian Week marked the visit to the Welsh valley town of Atalanta for a European Cup Winners' Cup tie. Pendarren Park normally sees games in the Midland Division of the Beezer Home Southern League. The team did the town proud, ending the first leg with a 2-1 advantage. There was no happy ending though, no Welsh Week in Italy, just a battle for survival. Atalanta needed to score twice while keeping Merthyr out, and they just did enough. It was 2-0 in the second leg, 3-2 on aggregate. For the Welshmen, it was an honourable defeat. Merthyr could return without disgrace to where they keep a welcome on the hillsides and the Beezer home fires burning. Elsewhere in Italy, another Welsh performance came under intense scrutiny. Ian Rush had recovered from an injury picked up in his first league game for Juventus and made his home debut. 2 confidently executed goals upset Pescara, who had started the game as leaders of the Italian First Division. However, the best British performance in European club soccer was in the Champions Cup, where Rangers overcame a first-leg deficit against formidable Dynamo Kiev. Oh!
And what a gift! What a gift! Souness. Francis. And they all hesitated except for McCoist.
1 goal was the aggregate margin. The questions were about the margins of the pitch. The Soviets objected to Rangers narrowing the playing area.
This is the widest pitch in Scotland. Again, getting back to our inexperienced players, I feel that with the pitch being as big as it is, and it is too big, not for tonight specifically, we decided to bring it in a couple of yards. No big deal in that.
I have to tell you, they're saying it's rather un-British because they trained on the full-size pitch.
Is that right?
Yes. You no comment to make on that?
No comment.
Billy McNeill, the other Glasgow manager in Europe, was no happier when his Celtic team went out to Borussia Dortmund in the first round of the UEFA Cup. And as AC Milan blasted Sporting Gijón from the UEFA Cup, Ruud Gullit's name went into the notebook of apprehensive goalkeepers all round Europe. Question, how do you keep out shots like that? But football, especially European football, is an inexhaustible source of the unexpected and the inexplicable. First major casualty of the season on the managerial battlefield was Ron Saunders, fired by West Brom.
We need a shot in the arm, and we think that Ron Atkinson, together with Colin, are the 2 men who can do it for us.
While Ron Atkinson and Colin Addison talked a bright future, Ron Saunders acknowledged that for him this might be the end.
I think as far as football is concerned, it could well be, yeah. But having said that, I've already had some offers in the game, I've had some offers outside the game. And it's nice to be wanted, but, you know, we'll see.
I'm hopeful that we can restore quite a bit of pride and quite a bit of entertainment for the fans to come and see.
But there was a comeback by the Dock. Another comeback, that is. Tommy Docherty became manager of Altrincham in the GM Vauxhall Conference, his 18th job.
You know, when I went to Rotherham, we had a wonderful old chairman there called Derek Purcell, and I promised him, I said, don't worry, chairman, I'll take you out of the 2nd division, and I'll take him into the 3rd.
Internationally, Wales felt they might be heading for the European Championship finals when Mark Hughes' goal beat Denmark and took them to the top of their group. The Republic of Ireland also headed their qualifying section, but in Dublin they needed Paul McGrath's late goal to beat Luxembourg 2-1. Scotland's poor form meant that only 21,000 were at Hampden for a friendly with Hungary, but they saw Ali McCoist on form as the Scots won 2-0. But September is seldom England's month. Bobby Robson's men look rusty in Dusseldorf, losing 3-1 to West Germany, hosts to the forthcoming European Championships. 2 weeks later, Terry Venables, one of Robson's possible successors, was on the market. The lad from Dagenham had taken Barcelona to the European Cup final 15 months earlier, but couldn't satisfy the clamour for further success.
Really, the newspapers are quite hysterical, and they put a lot of pressure onto the public, which in turn comes into the stadium. And really, I see the same thing going the same way in England, the way things are with some of the newspapers there too. In the Littlewoods Cup, Venables' former club Tottenham were given a first leg shock, a 1-0 defeat at Torquay. And after Blackburn had slowed Liverpool's juggernaut start with a goalless draw, manager Don Mackay was asked if he thought anyone could actually beat them.
They are, I would say, arguably the best team in England at the present time. But they still have players there. They have flaws. Everybody's got flaws. Everybody makes mistakes. I think you've got to try to exploit these mistakes. It can be very difficult because to find them, to look for them, it's a very hard job.
Here's Barnes. Number 7, Beardsley. And there goes Barnes again. Danger here. Aldridge far post. John Anderson and Steve Nicol. This is Venison. And here's Barnes. And Aldridge this time. 2-0. Onside, Beardsley. Nichols in the centre. Completely unmarked as yet. There he is again. 3-0. Beardsley in the middle. It's still Nicol, he's gone all the way, and that is the hat-trick.
This time last year, Spurs manager David Pleat was rewarded for his belief in football's best principles with a place at Wembley. By October, his career seemed in ruins. Newspaper allegations about his private life led to his departure from Tottenham.
The pressures that have accumulated in the last 4 months have made it more than difficult to manage a club the size of Tottenham.
4 days later, the obvious was official. Terry Venables was welcomed by Chairman Irving Scholar as the new manager of Spurs. At Wembley, England cleaned up against Turkey in a European Championship qualifying game.
Beardsley! Brilliant! And Hoddle. And Webb this time! Well, the man who came in scores from a pass by the man he initially replaced.
The Republic of Ireland maintained their group leadership by beating Bulgaria 2-0. Kevin Moran got the second. But Liam Brady got the red card. His second booking of the game resulted eventually in a UEFA ban which will keep him out of the Republic's first 2 games in the finals. But at least the Republic will be there. Northern Ireland were bottom of England's group, pinned there even more firmly by a 3-0 defeat in Yugoslavia. And in Copenhagen, Wales suffered a setback.
Here's Fleming Paulson. Could go anywhere, and in fact it goes in the net. Lebanon the score.
Well, we weren't beaten by Denmark, we were beaten by the referee, and that's top and bottom of it, and that's what all the players feel.
Rangers and Celtic met again, provoked first each other and then the Glasgow Constabulary. 3 were sent off by the referee, 4 were charged by the police. England players Butcher, Woods and Roberts, plus McAvenny of Celtic. Europe provided a reminder that gratuitous stupidity is not a British monopoly. In Rotterdam, Holland's 8-0 victory over Cyprus was interrupted by a smoke bomb that left the Cypriot goalkeeper temporarily deaf and blind in one eye. The more acceptable face of European soccer was shown by Hugo Sanchez, the predatory Mexican in a Real Madrid team reviving memories of the club's halcyon days. Back home, the Littlewoods Cup came down to the last 16, among them Luton Town, making progress at the expense of Coventry. Liverpool were out, beaten for the first time in the season by Everton, the arch-enemy. But as Anfield prepared for another big signing, Don Howe had a warning for the rest of the league.
They buy good players, expensive players, and they let them play. They stick them in the side and let them express themselves. And you can do that if you're going to spend $1 million here and $1 million there, and you're buying the best players, that's what you should do.
The new man was Ray Houghton from Oxford, and there was some change from £1 million. The Everton defeat proved no more than a stumble in another month when the Reds rampaged.
Dwayne Johnston! And he drives it into the top corner. Barnes. And Barnes again. 3. Barnes won it. He won it from Brock. He's got Beardsley going to his left, but still Barnes. That's a fabulous individual
goal. November saw Rangers through against Gornik, 4-2 on aggregate, in the second round of the European Cup. The beginning of the Poles' downfall, a penalty.
1-0. Roberts again. Bit slack. Oh, that's a great goal.
Everything being even, we're not good enough to win the European Cup, but that's what happens in certain games.
It was the likes of Real Madrid who were setting the standards soonest respected. They knocked out Porto, the European Cup holders. PSV Eindhoven, who had a 100% record in the Dutch league, shortened their odds by comfortably beating Rapid Vienna. But Scotland lost Dundee United from the UEFA Cup. This goal made it 3-2 on aggregate to the Czech club Vítkovice. Football, pure and simple, however, had to compete for notice in November with football chairmen, who were anything but simple.
Mr. Maxwell, why have you decided to buy Watford?
Elton John, after 11 years of superb service to Watford, had decided to pass the baton. He and his advisors very rightly judged that the British Printing Corporation, whose head offices in Watford, who have long-term interest in the prosperity and the happiness of the town, that they would be the right people to take over from him. And we agreed with his judgment.
I mean, it so happens that it is Mr. Maxwell who has been asked for publicity, and as a result of that, because of his unique position in the media market, he's able to obtain maximum publicity for himself. But I think had it been any other individual who was involved to the extent of possibly owning 3 clubs, then the same set of circumstances would have applied.
In the end, Elton John kept his shares, the league toughened the rules about multiple ownership, and Maxwell, by Maxwell standards anyway, went quietly. The joke was on Scotland when the European Championship groups were completed. Gary Mackay's international debut goal against Bulgaria in Sofia only ensured that the Irish Republic would play in the finals.
Oh, we might win it. We're good enough. We've got a very good side, well balanced. We're pretty ruthless at the back, good quality, plenty of skill in midfield, and if we can get this goal scoring right up front, which is starting to happen a little bit, we'll be okay.
In Yugoslavia, John Barnes scored one of the goals that ended England's campaign with a balance of 19-4 and only 1 against. Wales went to Prague knowing they had to beat Czechoslovakia to qualify, but once again they were left looking in vain for an offside flag. Mark Hughes played in that 2-0 defeat and then a few hours later turned up in Munich, flown in by private jet to play for Bayern in a West German Cup tie. Hughes had joined Bayern earlier in the month on loan from Barcelona, and now it was in time to share in the congratulations for Rummenigge's goal. November was also the month when England's Terry Butcher broke his leg playing for Rangers. When the Guardian's Brian McAllister had the last word on an Australian brewery's bid to sponsor the FA Cup, and when Brian Clough began to enthuse about his new young Forest.
So if I can hang on to what we've got, I don't see any reason at all why we can't do what we did with Forest 7 or 8, 9 years ago and what I did with Derby initially, because the ingredients are there. We've got lovely young men working with us who want to succeed. They're happy in Nottingham, and if they're reinforced with the odd player here and there, which I've no doubt there will be, then we can challenge Arsenal and Liverpool and Everton and Manchester United. There's no reason why we shouldn't.
But up to this point, most of those who had ventured into the deep water with Liverpool had been severely bitten.
That's great from Barnes to McMahon. Barnes, oh, lovely back heel. McMahon, Aldridge, good challenge. Beardsley! Oh, that's a lovely goal. That's a lovely goal.
By December, Hearts had been deposed as leaders of Scotland's Premier Division. With the scoring prowess of Paul McStay, Celtic had taken over. Across Glasgow, Mark Walters of Aston Villa arrived at Ibrox to take Graham Souness's spending past £5 million in 18 months. But he recouped £500,000 by selling striker Robert Fleck to Norwich. And the following day, Norwich sold central defender Steve Bruce to Manchester United for £825,000. The World Cup draw was a reminder that major championships trample on each other's heels, for it was this month that the British Medical Journal scooped the soccer press with an exclusive follow-up to the last World Cup.
England. Gruppe 2.
It was the strange case of the man who came all over itchy when he watched England failing to come up to scratch in Mexico.
Oh yeah, that looks nasty. Well, I'm afraid that's a case of World Cup urticaria. Nettle rash in layman's term, brought on probably by extreme frustration of watching that particularly appalling game.
Thanks very much.
There was no easy cure, though, for Mark Dennis. The medicine for the Queen's Park Rangers defender after his 11th sending off was 53 days suspension. Times had changed since Dave Mackay enforced his own discipline in Spurs midfield. In December, he came back from the desert to manage Doncaster Rovers.
I did enjoy it, but I've had enough of the Middle East and the sun, and I'm back here where it's nice and cold.
In this month, David Pleat was rescued from the wilderness. The former Tottenham boss was given the manager's job at Leicester. Boxing Day crowds were down on 1986, but well over 500,000 watched a full programme of fixtures 2 days later. And the holiday produced some spectacular goals.
Ardili steps over it, Waddle!
Oh, yes!
Waddle kept it in play.
Yes! Fairclough! Brian Robson. Into McClare. Now here's a chance. McClare! Yes! A goal for Manchester United by Brian McClare.
Now Dennis Wise. 2-1. And Quarks Bass has set up Dennis Wise. Sanchez. No offside flag. This is Vinnie Jones. And that is 3-1. And Arsenal won't come back from that.
Before, people were always thinking that, you know, there's a big secret about Liverpool, and if any player goes to Liverpool, he's going to learn the secret. You know, I've always wondered, if you go through an initiation ceremony, you know, as to find out what the secret of Liverpool is. There's no secret, you know, they just play the game simply. And I suspected that all along.
We'll have the second part of that centenary review for you in about 20 minutes' time.
January brought cup ties. In the third round of the FA Cup, Match of the Day viewers saw live coverage of Manchester United versus Ipswich.
And Moran. Oh, an own goal! Did that go in off Davray? I think that went in off Mitch Davray. Humes comes in and tucked in. David Lowe was on the end of it, was he? Moran waiting. Anderson in with the goalkeeper, and it's a goal.
In the Littlewoods Cup quarter-finals, Arsenal beat Sheffield Wednesday.
Waits for Winterburn. Oh, it's in! A horrendous mistake by Martin Hodge, and Nigel Winterburn has scored a most unexpected goal for Arsenal.
Everton beat Manchester City.
Lovely curling cross. Sharp makes it 2-0.
Oxford shocked Manchester United.
They were all watching, and how they were made to pay by Gary Briggs.
And Steve Foster's free kick helped Luton complete the quartet at the expense of Bradford City. The fourth round of the FA Cup saw Manchester United remove Chelsea.
Whiteside, yes!
Nottingham Forest won at Leyton Orient.
Oh, good flick by Clever, and Wilkinson striding on, showing terrific pace. Good save, Wilkinson again. Plano Shawley, yes!
Port Vale pulled off the win of the round against Spurs.
And Splay waved on. This is Walker. Yes! Oh, Ray Walker! And it's dropped for Beckford. Yes, Brosson! It's 2-0.
And that wasn't the only upset in January.
Well, I mean,
cork is easy sort of...
Are you all right? At Watford, the Elton John-Dave Bassett partnership that had started in a mood of smiling optimism was dissolved in disappointment. After only 8 months, Bassett left for Sheffield United, and Steve Harrison moved from being assistant at Villa Park to being boss at Vicarage Road. But a boss whose first priority was to restore confidence.
We will play attractive football. We will hopefully get this crowd on their feet again, and we will hopefully score goals. Not hopefully, definitely score goals.
By the end of the month, all 4 divisions were headed by clubs with aristocratic pedigrees. Steve Bull was leading Wolves onward and upward in the 4th. Sunderland were chipping away at the rocky road to promotion from the 3rd division. And Aston Villa were glimpsing the promised land from the peak of the 2nd. But nobody could match Liverpool, whose football in January took them 17 points clear at the top of the 1st.
Barnes took on Caesar. Still Barnes, brilliant. Carlton couldn't convert. McMahon, 3 in the way. Tony Adams only got a foot to it. Well, McMahon won that back wonderfully well. Beardsley. Oh, a goal for Aldridge. Smackman. Aldridge. Beardsley. Oh, brilliantly done by Peter Beardsley.
Well, we'll leave the review of the season there just for a second, and we'll
Liverpool in February, when for the first time Steve McMahon joined his teammates Peter Beardsley and John Barnes on an international team sheet when England played Israel.
I think he'd like to think at Liverpool he can re-emerge as another Souness, because he's hard-hitting, hard-tackling, works hard in front of the back 4, and I've actually seen him score some great goals where, in actual fact, he's actually unlocked the door. You know, he's actually scored the goal to put Liverpool in front.
But while Robson prepared for the European Championships, Wales were out, and so was manager Mike England. Another February parting put a swift end to Tommy Docherty's latest comeback. Out of the Littlewoods Cup went Everton, beaten in the semi-final by Arsenal, with David Rocastle among the goals. Out too went Oxford United, victims of Luton Town, who were eventually the winners.
Harford, Brian Steen again, beautifully done by Luton. Wonderful goal.
In the northeast, Newcastle United's Paul Gascoigne was stepping out as one of the season's major young talents. But on a visit to London, he found himself somewhat restricted, not to say squeezed, by Wimbledon's Vinnie Jones.
We climb the stairs, we never knock, for nobody's there, just me and my shadow, all alone and oh so beautiful.
Long-term, Wimbledon were on a more significant collision course in the FA Cup, towards Liverpool, winners of another Mersey derby.
Aldridge is there, Howden's there, it's a goal for Liverpool!
As for the league championship, the only question was when. In March, when the European club competitions resumed, Real Madrid were too good for Bayern Munich in the quarter-finals of the Champions Cup. But Rangers couldn't recover from a 2-0 first-leg deficit against Steaua Bucharest.
That's a great move, and that's a goal. Oh! Stowe, well in the lead. There's a touch there, it must be a goal, it is! Richard Gough. Looks like Ali McCoist. 2-1.
But Rangers went out, and when these pictures went round Europe, many must have been glad to see them go. There was a Chelsea suspense story that had been running most of the season. Would John Hollins jump, or would he be pushed?
I've been here for 18, 20, well, about 20 odd years. And I disappeared, but I came back. They still carried on, and they still got on, and they still did their things. I want the best for Chelsea Football Club. That's all.
A change of coaches, Ernie Whalley out, Bobby Campbell in, seems not to have been Hollins' idea of the best for Chelsea Football Club. And in March, he went, leaving Chairman Ken Bates to answer the questions.
As a former player, I mix every day within football. Why is it you are so unpopular within the game?
I think, I don't think I am as unpopular within the game as you say. I'm unpopular in Fleet Street, but that's because when Fleet Street tell lies, I stand up and reply to them.
There was a Wembley crowd limit of around 75,000 when Holland came for a friendly international. Some showed their boorishness by booing the European Footballer of the Year, but most were left marvelling at the 21-pass build-up to a goal that will rank among the finest the old stadium has ever seen. Gullit was involved 4 times.
Just the beginning, you know, and I hope that I can grow. You never know, of course, but it's not just growing, you know. If you enjoy the game, you know, itself, it comes also like this, you know.
The FA Cup came down to the last 4. One was Forest, who beat Arsenal.
Clough, Wilkinson, good effort. Oh, that's a tremendous goal.
Another was Luton, conquerors of Portsmouth.
Still Wills on his left foot. Oh, goal!
Wimbledon reached their first semi-final by beating Watford.
He's got Gibson up with him, but he finishes it on his own.
And needless to say, Liverpool made up the numbers. Most intriguing of the transfer deadline moves took Ossie Ardiles on loan from Tottenham to Blackburn. There he joined his former White Hart Lane colleague Steve Archibald, who was at Ewood Park on loan from Barcelona. Reading collected the season's first trophy. Next to bottom of the 2nd Division, they outplayed Luton at Wembley to win the Simod Cup. Oxford's new manager was Mark Lawrenson, already sure of a Champions medal with Liverpool.
I'm not playing anymore, but in saying that, obviously once I'm managing, my whole thing's 100% into management, and I tend to forget everything about Liverpool, which is the only way to be, obviously.
Liverpool was still unbeaten in the league, threatening the record from the start of the season set by Leeds United in Johnny Giles' day.
The present Liverpool side would be contenders in any era for the honours. I don't see it in our era running away with the league with 16 or 17 points with 2 or 3 matches in hand. I don't think that would happen.
Liverpool equalled the record by drawing with Derby County, but there it ended, stopped in the next game by the arch-rivals Everton. April was the month when the Football League cleared a whole weekend's fixtures to have another Wembley centenary party. Nottingham Forest won first prize on penalties, but Brian Clough wasn't there to see it. In fact, only 18,000 were.
Sutton ends as the hero.
Celtic Park ablaze with colour. Trying to swing it round And that's a very good ball. Walker has done it. What a fine goal.
Celtic celebrated their centenary by winning the championship and putting themselves in position to complete the double by beating Hearts in the semi-final of the Scottish Cup.
That's a tantalising one. Goals given. I think McStay put it in.
And Liverpool was similarly placed in England.
Barnes. Aldridge is there. Aldridge! And exactly the same again. Liverpool come out of defence and snatch a vital goal. And again, Barnes involved, and what a volley from Aldridge.
While Wimbledon beat Luton to ensure their first appearance in the FA Cup final.
Cork. Oh, yes! It's Little Wise. Came from nowhere as far as the Luton defence were concerned. Bobby Gould there to join in the congratulations, but probably trying to tell his players to calm down. This is not a time to let the fact that you're in the lead go to your head, and he knows that.
Sport's exclusive right to punish its own sinners was breached when Terry Butcher and Graham Roberts had to pay in court for their part in the Ibrox fracas. While Swindon's Chris Kamara set an unenviable precedent in England with a £1,200 fine for assaulting a fellow professional on the field. The PFA Awards named John Barnes as Player of the Year. Liverpool also had second and third in Steve McMahon and Peter Beardsley. Manchester United's visit to Anfield provoked a row between the two managers that sadly clouded the deeds of their players.
McMahon! Oh, a shame. That's got to be one of the best goals of the season, even by Liverpool standards. Strachan making a lovely run through the middle. He's onside. Gordon Strachan with a chance to equalise, and does. What a turn-up.
Nothing detracted from the display that devastated Nottingham Forest.
Barnes against Chethel. Oh, look at Barnes here. They're waiting for the pullback. Beardsley! Oh! A glorious goal again.
You know, the skills and the speed the game was playing at was absolutely tremendous, and I came away thinking, well, I've been really entertained, and I'm sure that the whole of the spectators here saw an exhibition tonight that they'll never be bettered, I don't think.
The presentation to Liverpool of the Championship trophy first won by Preston 100 years earlier began the end of season honours roll. As May unfolded, the closest battle of all was in the second division. But Millwall's late run made them worthy champions. Promoted to the first division for the first time, Cold Blow Lane crash and all. Aston Villa won the scramble to go up directly with them by virtue of having scored more goals than Middlesbrough. Sunderland rejoiced as their team took the third division title under the inspirational leadership of Dennis Smith. And the Seagulls took wing again. Brighton's form in the second half of the season ensured promotion for them. Steve Bull was the leading scorer in the country, past the half-century with the Sherpa Van Trophy final still to come, and Wolves champions of Division 4. Also certain to be promoted, Cardiff and Bolton. But Newport County are gone, their Somerton Park now a crumbling memorial to mounting bills and boardroom instability. Back in Newport's place, after only one season, come Lincoln City, champions of the Vauxhall Conference, vindicated in their decision to stay as full-time professionals. So now, for most, the season is over. For some, the excitement and the anguish of the playoffs still remain. but today belongs to the champions from Merseyside and the upstarts from London SW19.